Hi, Ryan. Thanks for talking to us on National Mental Health Day and taking the time to spend this with us.
No time at all, Alex. I hear you've got some questions for me.
Yes. So, Ryan, why is awareness around mental health so important?
I think I'm very passionate about awareness of mental health because I am diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder. And I think awareness is very important, not specifically around OCD, but around mental health in general, because I think a lot of people don't know the signs and symptoms of certain illnesses. And I think it would be fantastic if people knew because they could get the support they need far quicker if they did.
Yeah, I think so for sure. Would you say you've experienced mental health issues yourself? You did mention you've been diagnosed with OCD.
Yes, so Alex, I don't know if you know this about me. I have obsessive compulsive disorder. I was diagnosed at university in my second year, I believe. One day, pretty much my brain stopped working the way it's always worked, and I didn't know what was going on at all. I had lots of anxiety. I didn't really know what anxiety was before this happened. I always thought that I was just like nervous or hadn't eaten enough or my sugar levels were low and things like that. And I was suffering from extremely repetitive thoughts, which I found very distressing.
Yeah. And what signs and signals did you experience that made you realize something wasn't quite right?
So I think it was mostly the repetitive thoughts, the anxiety, general sense of not feeling myself, if that makes sense. And yeah, it was really, really stressful time, especially being at university with all of the responsibilities of studying, dissertations, making films, that kind of documentaries, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was a real tricky time. But I think mental health can show itself in numerous different ways. I'm not an expert by any means on lots of different types of mental illnesses. I think I've got a good handle on obsessive compulsive disorder as a sufferer or person who deals with it on a day-to-day basis. It's not it's never gone, if that makes sense. It's you have to handle it, you have to manage it, you have to do what you learn and stuff like that. And I learned a lot through CBT. So I went to therapy for a year, and it was called cognitive behavioral therapy, where you expose yourself to the things that you're obsessing about that you don't like, and that therefore reduces the anxiety and the power that the bombarding thoughts have on your mind and stuff like that. One good thing that sort of come out of it is I've been able to help like three people that I know through people who've had stuff like this because I'm very outspoken about it to my team. You know, I said you may not know this, but I've definitely told you before. I tell Dale, who's in my team on a weekly basis, and all my friends know and stuff like that. But I was able to help someone recently who was suffering similar symptoms, and I was able to not in any means sort of act as a doctor, but I was able to go through my old hard drive, pick out some resources that were given to me by a therapist, and also give some great recommendations for YouTube channels of qualified practitioners, as well as send the lovely person some books via Amazon about mindfulness and OCD that really, really helped them as well.
That's really cool. Who did you reach out to get that information? Where did you go?
So the information I got was actually given to me by my therapist back in the day. Her name was Magda. She's an absolute lifesaver, fantastic woman, taught me a lot of things. And yeah, so all the stuff I passed on is always by qualified people. I would never give out wrong information, stuff like that. So yeah, and spoke to that person last night. It's been a real help for them so far, so that's good.
No, that's great. And how did you feel about taking the sessions with the therapist?
Initially, I was really worried about it. I had a really tough year. I didn't tell anyone what I was going through for like a year. And then it just got a bit too much. So I told my mum, as anyone would really. And then I got seen by a doctor, and then the doctor referred me to the therapist, and the therapist diagnosed it as OCD within the first like 45 minutes, which was also kind of calming, knowing that I wasn't losing the plot, or going mad. That's what I thought was happening to my brain. And yeah, being comforted by someone who understands the illness and is able to teach you the right tactics you need to ensure that your brain doesn't run away with itself. She also had something quite interesting that she told me, which I found um, quite interesting because of the nature of my job, is that creativity can be linked to certain forms of high functioning creativity because you can imagine yourself into situations that are very, very unlikely to happen. And what she said was that everyone has these thoughts, intrusive thoughts or thoughts that are just like, I don't like that. But the problem is with the OCD population is we give them far too much attention, which then leads to the issues and symptoms associated with obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yeah, that's really interesting, like how the brain works with different people and personalities as well as people who have OCD. Um, so what are your coping mechanisms? How did you end up dealing with it?
So it's a lot of CBT, it's a lot of reading, studying. Even now, when I have sort of down days, which are very rare because I've got quite a good handle on it now, but still have to pull out the books and do your CBT, do your mindfulness, do a bit of meditation now and again, expose yourself to situations you don't like, which is very stressful, but I never leave, which is good. Um, and yeah, and I think the main thing is if if anything, what I would love people to take away from this video and in light of Mental Health Day is OCD is not something just about cleaning. It's not something that people should say, oh, I'm a little bit OCD about this and stuff. It's been categorized as one of the most debilitating mental illnesses, in the world at times for certain people. And I think to try and promote awareness about how serious it can be versus how light-hearted those comments come across, I think that can really be quite hurtful to the OCD population. So I think if anything, try and be more mindful with your language if you are one of the individuals that says stuff. And I think if you know anyone, or even if yourself suspects that you are going through any signs of mental health, is to make that first step and try and get the help as soon as possible. Because if I could go back in time and tell my younger self to not put myself through such a tough year, I would. And, everyone deserves to have good mental health. And I think knowing that there are things in place that can really, really help is, such a calming and forward thinking thing to think about, because you can have your brain back to normal to a certain degree, especially with OCD.